Hello, everyone. I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen, your host for Heads Together, and I am greeting you from New Jersey. I warned everybody last week I'm heading to 17 cities between now and the end of the year, and here we go. So here I am, and I'm flying a little bit solo today because Jen is behind the scenes, but unfortunately she's under the weather. So it feels so sad to be so close to her geographically, but we're not able to come together because she's not feeling well. So I'm sure we all wish her a speedy recovery. She's being a real trooper today. So Jen, thank you for helping us from behind the scenes as you always do. So here we are. It's March 30th, 2022. And as we have begun the show the last couple of weeks with talk about Ukraine, the war rages on. And I am just always interested in the ways that we can help with the situation and with our colleagues in Ukraine. And one of those wonderful resources, which I came to my attention early in the pandemic, is the World Food Kitchen, World Central Kitchen. I'm going to ask Jen to put that link in the chat and to bring up the website, if you would, Jen. WCK.org is the link for Jose Andres. Perhaps you've seen him on the news, where he's a chef, and he goes to these war-torn places and goes into real danger in order to feed people. So it's WCK.org if you want to help and donate some money to them. There are these kids, and Jose Andres is just doing terrific work over in Ukraine, feeding people, because there he is. There's Chef Jose Andres. So as I said last week, if you have any links for a charity, a place for us to help that is different from this, please put it in the chat. I welcome you to do that. Thanks, Jen. So it's WCK.org, and it's in the chat. So welcome to the show today, Sheba and Jennifer and everyone who's coming to us from all over the country and around the world often. I'm here in New Jersey today, and we are in our next to last show in this format of Heads Together. So next week will be our final show, doing this as a weekly show, and then we go to once a month, and we'll begin the following week on Thursday, April 14th with the Staff Matters community. And I want to express gratitude. Last week when we announced it to the community, I was so moved by the outpouring of support and messages, and many of you signing up for the Staff Matters community. You can either sign up by the month, by the year, or for a lifetime with me. And Robert, of course, said to me, you really need to explain what lifetime means. And lifetime, I think everyone understands, it's for as long as there's a need for the group. And, none of us knows what tomorrow is going to bring, but my intention is, as long as there's a need to talk about these issues in the workplace, I'm going to keep going. And in the once a month format, with the ability to communicate 24/7 on the network community. Some communities use Slack, some use Circle, and on the platform we're using, where it's every community member will have access to what's called the peer board community, an ability to talk privately with each other, however often is necessary between meetings. I wouldn't think during the meetings, but there it is. Really excited to introduce you to this community. Jen, if you can include that in the chat about the Staff Matters community, we're giving 20% off for right now. I mean, we're pricing this at $25 a month, but for right now, it's 20% off that. So we're working really hard to make it affordable. The new format will be on Zoom. So unlike this format where I can see your names in the chat, I'm not able to actually see you and I can't hear you. And that has always felt a little odd to me, because those of you who've been to Be the Ultimate Assistant and at conferences with me know that I just have such a passion for the interactivity that happens between us in a room. So it's going to be a virtual room on Zoom, but there it is. Oh, Helen Monument, what a wonderful surprise to have you here. Let's see. Oh, thank you so much, Helen. What a pleasure to have you here. Helen Monument is the chairwoman of the World Administrative Alliance, and it is a global body that has sponsored the Global Skills Matrix, which we talked about several weeks back. And it's an honor to have you here, Helen. Thank you so much for being a part of us today. And forevermore, for however often you want to be in the room with me, I want to be in the room with you. She is an example, a shining example of some of the leaders and experts who join us at these meetings. And Vicki Evans confirmed with me yesterday that she'll be joining us on April 14th at our first meeting of the Staff Matters community. And I have lots of surprises up our sleeves. So let's see. Sharon, hi, Sharon. Yes, we intend to have fantastic conversations at the Staff Matters community. And so let me give you an example of one right this minute. I am thinking that most of you, if not all of you, heard about what happened at the Oscars on Sunday. The Academy Awards happened Sunday night. For those of you who may not be a movie buff and might not have watched, two actors kind of got into it on Sunday night. Chris Rock, the comedian, was going to be presenting, and he, as often happens in the Oscars, a comedian is on stage and making jokes, and often having people in the audience be the butt of those jokes. And I mean, the Oscars happen to be my favorite show of the entire year. So I've watched a lot of Oscar telecasts over the years, like way back. I know I'm going to date myself, but people like Bob Hope and Johnny Carson hosting, and the whole thing is that they make fun of people in the audience. And I can remember lots of actors looking kind of annoyed when they're the butt of the jokes. People like De Niro and Pacino and Clint Eastwood, like that. Chris Rock made fun of Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, made fun of her hair specifically. Jada Pinkett Smith, who's famous, a movie star in her own right, she has a medical condition called alopecia. And so she's got extremely short hair. Some would say it's shaved. And Chris Rock made what he thought was a funny comment. I found myself wondering, who wrote that comment? Did he write his own joke? Did somebody else write that joke? Will Smith took serious offense. It didn't look like Jada Pinkett Smith took much offense to it, although she definitely looked annoyed. But Will Smith definitely did. And he stood up and he walked to the stage and he slapped Chris Rock. And he walked back to his seat, and twice he used profanity. And he said, "Keep my wife's name out of your blinkety blank mouth." And he said it twice. So that's what happened. And that was about an hour before the show was over. So it most definitely colored what happened the rest of the show. Will Smith ended up winning the Best Actor Oscar. So he got a chance to come to the stage still again when he apologized to the audience and to the Academy, but not to Chris Rock. He has since apologized. I am bringing this up because of its correlation to the workplace. Immediately, I got an inquiry on my email from Forbes asking me for a comment, asking, was this workplace bullying? Secondly, what should the Academy do about it? And so I put those questions to you. I'm going to tell you just a couple of thoughts that I have. I'm going to put on my glasses so I can read some of your comments in the chat. It's important to at least visit this subject because it not only was in front of a global audience, but there's a direct correlation to the whole issue of workplace bullying in the workplace. So Brian, hi Brian, great to have you here. Good point. Will Smith laughed at the joke first, and then his wife rolled her eyes like, I can't believe he just said that. And that's when he went off. Really good point, Brian. So here's the thing. Is it workplace bullying? Most definitely, yes. And here's why. Both Will Smith and Chris Rock are Academy members. And I worked for Olympia Dukakis. When you belong to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, you pay money for your card, you get a membership card, and you pay dues into this body. And the Academy was having an industry event. And can we not all relate to that, to having an industry event? We've all been at conferences with our colleagues from, different offices, whatever. And can we also relate to the notion that in our workplaces, we have lots of people who perhaps know each other from before. Two people, think of them, who have a history together. So the whole notion is that Will Smith and Chris Rock had a history together, that Chris Rock has made fun of Jada before. So there's a history there. And so what should the Academy do? One point I saw made is that if it had been most anyone else other than Will Smith, because he had been nominated for Best Actor, that they would have been escorted out of the building, because the Academy has a code of ethics which talks about no violence and no profanity. I think we'd still be talking about it if he had even not slapped him, but just had yelled from the audience what he chose to say. So there's an issue right there. Now, in our workplaces, don't we all have examples of two people who don't like each other and perhaps are snarky to each other? And sometimes it escalates into profanity between them and maybe even violence. I don't think it's unheard of that this has happened. So would really welcome you commenting on this as I'm talking a little bit here. Forbes was also interested. So what should the Academy do? What do you think? Right now, the Academy is going to take a couple of weeks to investigate this incident. Choices include canceling Will Smith's membership to the Academy. Another one is, sanctioning him, and he can't attend next year's Oscars, for 1 year or an amount of years. Others were saying they should take away his Best Actor Oscar. You should know, just for perspective, that in the past, at least two other people have had their Academy memberships taken away. Roman Polanski is one of them, the director, and Bill Cosby is the other one. And you know that we've had Stacey Pinkerton, who was one of Bill Cosby's targets on this show. And she will be joining us on the Staff Matters show as well to give us an update on what's happening with sexual assault laws, which are still very much in play. So wondering what you're thinking should happen to Will Smith. He's already given, an apology to Chris Rock, and that is certainly going a ways. But without question, violence and profanity really have no place in the workplace, because what we saw for the remainder of the show that night on Sunday was that everybody was thinking about it, that it overshadowed other people's awards and their time to shine, which is such a big deal. Hey, Sandy, so happy to have you here. So we're talking about what happened between Will Smith and Chris Rock the other night. Then the third question from Forbes the other day was, what can leaders in our workplace learn from what happened to apply in their own workplaces? And it seemed, one idea that I had, which I wrote to them, is that in every workplace, there needs to be very clear policies and rules about profanity, about violence, about conflict, workplace bullying. Absolutely, there needs to be clear policies about them, and evident, even when someone is interviewing for a job. An executive interviewing for a position needs to know that if there's a zero tolerance policy for workplace bullying, for example. Now, I happen to know that I've seen hundreds of job descriptions, and some job descriptions, there's some job company cultures that embrace salty language, and that in the job description it actually says that people who are shy about strong language, this shouldn't apply. That it's that kind of place. It's a very casual atmosphere, and that kind of thing exists. But that's a given going in, and that's in a kind of an agreement between an employee and the current staff. The other thing that I think leaders need to learn is that in this language, there need to be clear-cut accountability guidelines. That what happens if the rules get broken? So here are the rules, and then this is what happens if you break the rules. And those of us who are parents know that works in our house with our kids, and it works in the workplace. What we know, or what we've seen, is that the companies and the cultures that have very clearly laid out policies and a real path for accountability are more successful. So I wondered if you have any thoughts about this, about what should happen to Will Smith, and how can we apply these lessons in our own workplaces. Marion, the award should be revoked, not going, it would be accepting what he did. He could still remain a member, but there needs to be some response. Hey, Marion, I agree with you that there needs to be some response. I would, I'm not on the Academy board, but I don't necessarily think that his award should be taken away. I think there are other things that could be applied here. So policies and rules that apply to everyone. Yeah. And don't we know about that in the workplace, don't we? About rules that are unfairly applied. Everyone must be held accountable, no exceptions, every level, says Claudia. And that's easier said than done for many leaders, because we've seen it, we've heard it so many times in our conferences. What if it's the rainmaker, it's the person who's bringing in a lot of money to the company who's been the sexual harasser or the bully? And are they given a slap on the hand? And sometimes we've heard that it's the assistant that gets fired if the assistant has been involved in this. So it's not fair. Hello, Lizzie Jean, coming to us from Paris. And Lizzie, I don't know if you heard about what happened at the Oscars. It was a very big drama the other night, and accountability across all levels of the organization. Staff wants rules to be fair. Those of you who heard my TEDx talk, that was one of the points I made, is that staff knows when things aren't fair. Staff knows when leaders are looking the other way to either protect someone who's in power or authority, or sometimes it's even more basic than that, is that very few leaders have been trained how to address this kind of conflict. Leaders haven't been trained, nor has HR in the research I've been doing. So it's not easy to confront this kind of situation, but nobody said leadership was easy, and that's why they pay them the big bucks, one would assume. This is going to be tricky for the Academy because it's going to be sending a very clear signal to everyone else. Another comment I heard, I mentioned it before, is that from the history of the Oscars, part of the show is to have comedians on stage telling jokes and making fun often of the people sitting in the audience. So the comment I read was, is this the death of comedy at the Oscars? Ruth Ann is saying not the removal of the award, but perhaps a fine to both that goes to a charity to bring more awareness to the topics at the forefront. Interesting idea, Ruth Ann. I certainly believe that the Academy is going to let all members be refamiliarized with the code of ethics and understand the consequences going forward if this should ever happen again on that stage, because it's so easy, isn't it, to get up from your seat and walk to that stage. It's a live broadcast. Sharon is saying his award shouldn't be taken away. You're saying that the Academy has rules but doesn't list consequences, so they are applied differently depending on who the person is. If so, the consequences needed to be stated clearly. Sharon, when I was working with Olympia Dukakis, I feel sure that I had a copy of, the rule book, the guidelines every year when Academy members, you have to renew your membership like you renew your membership in different organizations that you belong to. And I'm certain that we had those code of ethics. I'm not certain that there were clear-cut rules about accountability. I know that there were rules against violence and profanity, and they have the 7-second delay. Interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Helen, hi. It's no good having a policy unless consequences are also made clear. No exceptions. Interesting point, Helen. And that in practice, that's what needs to be strengthened in leaders as we move forward in this new workplace we've got going on in the aftermath of this pandemic that held us back at home. Now we have an opportunity to recalibrate all the rules. And if you're sitting out there and if you're on this show right now, you're listening to either live or on the replay, and that the rules in your company are not fair, they exist, but they're not fair, or worse, they don't exist. And so there's no recourse for bullying or sexual harassment, then it's time for you to raise your hand and say, I think we can do better. And I think we need to create these, and I'll help. I'll be a part of that. It will set the precedent for what happens in the future 100%. This is history because people had it on their phones. This is a video that will be played for a very long time, I suspect. And it's going to matter. We're talking about it as it relates to the workplace. Just like the pandemic was international, it touched every country. So did this. The Oscars were probably not Russia, but the Oscars were, are seen all over the world. Brian has a point. if he isn't suspended from the academy and not allowed to participate at the award ceremony for a period of years, it'll send a message that this behavior is not acceptable. If they don't, then it sends a message that this behavior of violence will be tolerated. Yep, Brian, I hear you. And, I see professional sports wrestling with the same thing. I see universities wrestling with the same thing. And, we talked about on this show, it's Stormy, our LinkedIn user. Hi, Stormy. Great to have you here. Stormy Washington. You remember when Governor Cuomo was accused of sexual harassment, and it took 11 women accusing him, but we have not seen a governor resign in a very long time. I mean, that is serious accountability. Ever since 2017 and the Weinstein case and Me Too and Time's Up and, all the Cosby, I don't like calling them victims, but the targets of his harassment and assault. These cases, these stories have been coming to the surface so much faster. Ruth Ann, I was about to say that in the sports world, it happens all too often. It most certainly does. And I am glad we are living in a time when maybe we have a chance to fix it if we're willing to talk about it. So I have every reason to believe that the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences knows that the whole world is watching this one, for sure. So is the world of sports. So are the universities. So, look what happened with the Olympics and the doctor who assaulted, the gymnasts. So, there are so many examples of accountability happening these days. And you know what? I suspect that Will Smith will agree. They have children. We want to be role models for our kids, for our grandkids, for the people around us in the workplace. And I'm just so glad that Will Smith apologized. It's a good step forward to say that it was unacceptable completely. No, there was it. So what should have happened? In my head, I'm thinking, okay, so what if he and Jada had just sat there after the telecast? He could have had a sit down with Chris Rock and essentially said, you never, ever get to do that to me again. And in the workplace, that's what we teach should happen. Okay, so what can leaders do? Say, and I suspect that some of you have had this experience where you have two people on the team who hate each other or don't like each other, and there's tension around them. That tension is poisonous to an entire team. So what a leader needs to do is to lead and to get those two people, whether they're two assistants, two managers, a manager and a support person, to say, this is a place of business. This kind of conflict that you have personally has no place here. So we have to be grown-ups. What's going to happen? Give them a chance to talk it out, and then talk about what has to happen moving forward. We have to have a baseline of professionalism and mutual respect. Otherwise, it's a formula for failure. So, okay. So that's kind of the up to the minute update on that story as it relates to our workplace. So, oh my gosh, this half hour went really, really fast. So here's the thing. May 18, 19, and 20, Vicki Evans and I are going to be in New York City. We still have a few seats left. We're going to be live for Be the Ultimate Assistant, and we're so excited. We have students coming to us from all over the country. As we normally do, we max out at 30, And I hope that you will consider joining us if you have always wanted to go to B2A or want to come again. Jen is putting the link in the chat. And yeah, Sandy has been at B2A up in Boston. And we're just so excited. Vicki teaches day 3. It's 100% technology on day 3. And wow, our assistants validating that they so need it. And the first 2 days are with me, soft skills, and we've got guest speakers. It's pretty great. The coupon code is B2A bonus 200 to save $200 off the registration. We'd love to have you. If it makes sense, if you are looking to be the CEO of You Incorporated and to take your career wherever you want it to go in this workplace, oh my goodness, there have been so many changes that have happened, but they are referring to 2022 as the year of the employee. 2021 was the year of the job description. And that means each and every one of you needs to have an updated job description. Hey, Julie Kavanaugh, great to see you. Julie Kavanaugh has been at B2A, Julie, 8 times? 8 times, crazy. Karam is coming to New York City. So happy to have all of you here. It feels like we're having a big party. And then on Staff Matters, starting April 14th, these resources are about bringing this community together of professionals. And Staff Matters, it's so exciting. We not only have executive assistants, personal assistants, we have at least one recruiter who I saw. We have Carol Montgomery, who runs LimoLink. So we have professionals who care. That's the common denominator. The people who come into the rooms of Staff Matters and at B2A are professionals who care about making things better as we move forward in this workplace for everybody, for the assistants, for the leaders, for human resources, for recruiters. It's really time. It's so time. We have such a wonderful opportunity right now because things are still being pretty shaken up. We still have companies that are deciding when to go back, and things are not settled down at all quite yet. But hopefully as we move through 2022, they will be. So I thank you all for joining us here. We will be back next Wednesday, April 6th, for our last show of Heads Together before we begin the following week at the new format, monthly format, Staff Matters. So Jen has put the links in the chat. My goal is to address the issues in the workplace that matter, that are impacting our day in, day out time together. The pandemic taught us that none of us knows what tomorrow will bring, so we need to be ready for whatever that means. And it's so gratifying to see so many of you making big moves in your company as you hear these ideas, and then you go back and you're talking to your leaders about them. And just as simple to say, hey, I heard something at a webinar today that may be important for our company. And you know what? They're listening. They're listening to you. I promise you that. You come forward with not only the challenge, but some ideas about how to address that challenge. You're golden. The sky's the limit, truly. So thank you. And thank you, Jen, from behind the scenes. And thank you all for being here. Helen, again, it's such a delight to have you on the show. And you and I need to talk very soon. And Lizzie, oh my goodness. Hey, Linda, good to see you. Lizzie, always great. It's fabulous to have our worlds come together geographically. We are thousands of miles apart. And let us send lots of good energy out to our friends in the Ukraine as they fight mightily. What's happening? All right, my friends, we'll see you next Wednesday, and we'll see what new dramas happen in this next week. Take care.